Dawn Staley after the game, talking about the team that they beat and who we'll be getting into right now. Caitlin Clark, Dawn Staley in a classic moment of pure class on her part.
And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport, and it just is not going to stop here on the collegiate tour. But when she is the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, she's gonna lift that league up as well. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, that we appreciate you.
No surprise that came from Dawn Staley after the game. That's who she is. That's who she is. So let's talk about Caitlin Clark, who fell short. Iowa fell short in the national title game to South Carolina. Second year in a row. They lost to LSU a year ago, lost to South Carolina this year. I think we are missing the mark to a certain extent on the discussion around Caitlin Clark, and I am as guilty as anybody of this. Y'all know I love Caitlin Clark. Heck, who doesn't? Her game is an easy one to wrap your arms around, right? Obviously, we can see the range she has. She's the female Steph Curry. That's what she is. Again, I talked about last week, outside of Steph and Damian Lillard, there's no player, men's or women's, that I want taking the shot Caitlin Clark takes, except for Caitlin, Steph, and Dame. Because when they take it, I'm like, oh, that could go in. Yeah, I've seen them hit that numerous times. That's what she's capable of doing. She makes her teammates better. She doesn't care to get involved in the glass. She's a number of triple doubles this year. Doesn't care to play good team defense. But the discussion today: can Caitlin Clark be the greatest all time without a championship? Because you do factor in, well, Iowa isn't UConn or Tennessee or South Carolina or traditional college basketball. Heck, Stanford in recent years, or really for the last few decades or so, a traditional women's college basketball powerhouse. They're not that. So people do factor that in, but they're like, can she be in that discussion without a ring? We can discuss that another day, maybe a few years from now, maybe when Juju Watkins' college career is over in a couple of years when she goes to the WNBA, because I think Juju is going to be special as time goes on. I think by the end of next season, she'll be the best player in the women's game on the collegiate, at the collegiate level. Here's the thing about Caitlin Clark that we're missing. The fact that we are having these discussions, getting worked up about these discussions, getting into heated arguments on social media and otherwise. The fact that a comment that I didn't see as that much as quote unquote hating by the great Diana Taurasi on the ESPN broadcast with Sue Bird, the two obviously UConn great guard players reacting to the games during the Final Four. When Diana Taurasi was on with Scott Van Pelt, she said, yeah, she's great now. This isn't verbatim. She's like, yeah, she's great now. Let's see what she does to the next level. And people took that as, oh, Diana, you're hating, which to that I said, I'm like, Diana's maybe the greatest women's player ever. I don't think she has any right to hate or any reason to hate on Caitlin Clark, but people are getting worked up about that. I'm sure Breanna Stewart had her haters when she came out of the WNBA draft in 2016? We can talk about all the haters of Breanna Stewart like we do with Caitlin Clark. We didn't do that with Maya Moore when she came out in 2011. We didn't do that with Candace Parker when she came out in, I believe, either 07 or 08. And I love Candace Parker, my all-time favorite ball. We didn't discuss that. Folks, this came in about an hour ago before we got started. Iowa, South Carolina, 18.7 million viewers on ABC, and ESPN is the most watched women's college basketball game on record since 1992. Here's some incredible stats for you. Viewership up 89% from a year ago. This is insane, 285%, up 285% from 2 years ago's national championship game. The game peaked at 24 million views. That's like big level college football ratings. Most watched basketball game, men's or women's, college or pro, in 5 years. That's including NBA finals, folks. The finals, since in the last 5 years, haven't gotten what that game yesterday got. And this is the most impressive to me. Excluding football and the Olympics, the most watched sporting event since 2019. Wow. That, to me, will be the collegiate legacy of one Caitlin Clark. We can talk about her resume, two-time National Player of the Year, all-time scorer in the women's and men's game for that matter, all-time single-season record for three-pointers made in a season. The record was Steph Curry at 162. She hit 200. Now, some of that is Steph's impact, but some of that is just she's got the God-given skill and obviously the incredible work ethic to be able to take and make those shots. We can discuss if she's the GOAT anytime, sure. I think she has to be in the discussion. I don't think you can have a discussion about the greatest women's college basketball players ever, and her name is not mentioned. I think she's earned the right to put herself there. If she didn't win a championship at a traditional power, okay. But as I said last week when talking about Caitlin Clark, tell me the casual conversation you've ever had outside of Des Moines, Iowa, about Iowa women's college basketball prior to Caitlin Clark that lasted over a minute. It didn't happen. That's not a shot at Lisa Bluter, who's done a heck of a job coaching that squad, not a shot at any of the players. But let's be real, Iowa's not going to get even close to the ratings a year from now they do with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is to women's college basketball what Tiger Woods was to golf at his peak. She has entered that elite and so exclusive pantheon of athletes where you have to move your schedule, especially if it's a weekend. We got a lot of stuff we got to do on the weekend. Like we want to chill, whatever. You have to move your schedule because I have to watch 22 for Iowa, see what she's going to do. I have to watch that guy, that golfer who's just insane, got the swagger personality against Caitlin Clark, shares some of these traits. They move the needle to the point where you literally have to stop everything you're doing to watch them. I don't think there's a single NFL player. Listen, I got to stop everything I'm watching to watch Patrick Mahomes, but for the record, NFL ratings bear it out. NFL's king of television. It certainly doesn't hurt matters that Patrick Mahomes is Mahomes, but we're going to watch the NFL regardless. I mean, these awful Thursday night games, these like Carolina, Chicago games in years past get pretty good numbers, certainly relative to like big NBA or Major League Baseball or college sports games. She's done that. Michael Jordan did it. Tiger Woods did it. LeBron moves the needle. So does Steph. They don't move the needle like this. Not like this. And that to me, and I reiterate something I said last week on Wednesday when talking about this individual player. There's a lot of pressure on the WNBA right now because we know obviously it doesn't turn much of a profit, but they have a superstar coming into the league. If they cannot market Caitlin Clark, disband the WNBA. And by the way, Angel Reese coming to the WNBA. Cameron Brink's coming to the WNBA. In next year, Paige Becker's coming to the WNBA. A year after that, Juju Watkins, she's coming to the WNBA. If you can't market these women, particularly Caitlin Clark, disband the WNBA. Get a new league. Like, that's my mindset. But when you talk about an individual who's brought new eyeballs to the game, the fact that this is, I've done Carving It Up live for 4.5. Well, I've done Carving It Up live for about 3 years. I've done the show for 4.5 years, the podcast. For the last month and a half, I'd say 7 or 8 of my shows, maybe more, either the first or second topic has been women's college basketball. I've certainly talked about it. Everybody's talked about it more than the men's game. I'm excited about Purdue and UConn. I'm going to predict the game at the end of the show tonight. Excited for the game, of course, the national title game. End of March Madness as we know it this season. But unless this is just, and it could be, who knows, but unless it's an all-time classic, like say, for example, what we saw in like 2016 from Villanova, North Carolina, when Chris Jenkins hit that buzzer beater. Unless it's something like that, by and large, the women's game was better a year ago, certainly, and will likely be better this season. The shot making, the ball movement, the coaching, the chemistry, because these players, they don't go to the NBA. There is no or go to the WNBA in their case. They don't go pro after 1 year. There's no one and done. Get to build time. A lot of Iowa's players, they've been together for 3.5, 4 years. Caitlin Clark brought a new set of eyeballs to the women's game, and we are calling the great Diana Taurasi, oh, you're a hater. We're calling other players. Sue Bird made a similar comment. Oh, Sue Bird's hating. If either player would have said that again, they wouldn't have said that about a UConn player, obviously. But if they'd have said that about a Candace Parker, for example, if they would have said that about Asia Wilson when she came out of the draft years ago, it would have been back page news, if that. Her style of game, and I don't believe too much. I don't buy it. Oh, they play the right way. I think that's a little narrow-minded to a certain extent. Oh, they play the right way. But Caitlin Clark plays basketball the right way. She's an elite shooter, and let's be honest, that's what the game is. Because of Steph Curry, that's what the game is today. You got to be, unless you're Giannis and your most dominant player within 5 feet of the basket since Shaq himself, you have to be able to shoot if you're going to be a superstar at the next level. Heck, the collegiate level to a certain degree, although Zach Edey's probably the exception to that rule. There's always exceptions. She's a great passer, makes her teammates better. I mean, let's be real. Look at the two rosters, Iowa, South Carolina. This is a classic example where you got two squads facing off in the final round. You got the best player, which was Caitlin Clark, and then you go down. If you rank the players for both squads, you go Caitlin Clark, and then you go about 7 or 8 South Carolina players before you get to the next Iowa player. That's just reality. And you saw Caitlin Clark after the game. She had a press conference, and a year ago against LSU, man, she was in tears. She was sad. I mean, of course, you lost the national championship. You get this far only to fall short at the end. I watched her press conference on SportsCenter yesterday, and she was smiling. She was, down, disappointed, certainly, but you could see, and she sort of alluded to it in a quote, like, they're just so good. Talking about South Carolina. South Carolina's just so good. I remember years ago, Brian Kelly, when Notre Dame was getting housed by Alabama in the national championship, and they interviewed Brian Kelly at halftime, and he was smiling. And it's like, okay, he knows they can't match up with Alabama. I'm not going to get pissed off at my players. They're doing all they can. The other team's just better. South Carolina's just better than Iowa. I picked them because pick integrity. I wanted to see Caitlin Clark potentially ascend, go through the entire gauntlet of the tournament to become arguably the greatest player ever. But ultimately, she didn't have the horses. South Carolina was better. And I think this is the first time. Then we'll go to the comments. Feel free to chime in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this or any other topic. This is the first time, excluding football, where after the championship round is played, where I am genuinely bummed. Like, man, we got to wait 7 months, 8 months for the next big women's college game. Like, this sucks. I do it every year after the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, this great Super Bowl, like Kansas City Niners. Oh my good. Man, we got to wait 7 months, 7 months for the next NFL game that's going to be anything like this. I feel the same way about the women's game. I'm not going to feel the same way about the men's game. I really don't feel that same way about the NBA. I definitely don't feel about Major League Baseball, and I love baseball. Women's college basketball, the NCAA, whatever you want to call it, or refer to it as, they proved, and this is, again, putting pressure on the WNBA, they proved you can market Caitlin Clark. You can market these women. Question is, can the WNBA do it? I think they can. I think you have a superstar of this type of level. By the way, she's going to get drafted a week from today. A WNBA draft a week from today, 7:30 Eastern. I think it's on ESPN. She's going to get drafted. That's going to be a story. She's going to be playing professional basketball in a month. That's going to be a story. So I think they will be able to market her, but nonetheless, it certainly does put pressure on Caitlin Clark to be able to ascend to a certain level, be marketed to a certain level. So it is the end of one of the greatest college careers in any sport we've ever seen, and 18.7 million viewers. It's pretty good. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.